How's it going, YouTube? Welcome to another episode of Wells' Amateur Aquariums. Alright, so for today's episode, what we're going to be doing is doing some maintenance on my Fluval FX4 canister filter. It's set up on my 55-gallon aquarium, which is behind me. It's been running for about 6 weeks now, so it's 2 weeks overdue for some maintenance. So we're gonna rip it apart, see what kind of gunk's inside of it, and see what we need to do to clean it up and put it back together. All right, so here we have my Fluval FX4 canister filter. I've already unattached it from my 55-gallon aquarium. To do that, you need to make sure you shut off the valve, these red hinges here. Turn that all the way off on the intake and the outtake. And then of course, they have these little red buttons here. You press that and it's a little sticky, so you do have to pull up, and as long as your valves are shut off, there's only a little bit of water that's going to trickle out, so it's not going to be that big of an issue. Before I open this up, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to dump the water out, or as much of the water out of this as I can, so that when I take off these screws, there's not as big of a mess. So we're going to go ahead, take that water out, and then we'll come back in a second. Alright, so I just finished up taking the water out of the canister filter, and then I've unscrewed the caps, so these are already loose. When you're taking these off and you're unscrewing them, make sure you're doing that on opposite sides. That way the seal isn't stretched, it isn't stressed. So you just pop them off once you've unscrewed them, and the top comes out. On the intake side of the top, you're going to have a hose where the water runs down into your canister filter. So just be careful when you're taking this off so you don't damage that or wiggle it loose. Alright, so we'll be coming back in a second. We'll show you an aerial view of the canister filter. Alright, so we got the top off. Right now you can see from the top all of my mechanical filtration. What's nice about the Fluval FX4 is that it comes with these handles, and you can pick the trays right on out and take them out and do whatever kind of maintenance you need. For today, I don't really need to do too much of that. The main thing here, I'm just going to take out, rinse out each of my sponges. I'm going to put my Bio Max by Fluval, make sure that gets in my water over here so I don't lose any of my beneficial bacteria. So I'm going to work pretty quick here. So I'm just going to take the sponge out. I'm going to dip it in this water, give it a couple squeezes, kind of shake it out, try to get as much material out as I can. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'll put it back in the tray once I've squeezed it out a couple times. It's really important that you clean these out in the old canister filter water, so you're not putting your bacteria or any of your beneficial materials into tap water that might have chlorine in it. Kill that off. So take out these side sponges. After 6 weeks, they're not too bad. They're actually pretty clean, but again, squeeze them out, shake them around. I should get most of the fish poop out, and just by doing that for a couple seconds, it's already significantly cleaner. So we'll go ahead, take all these out, and then I'll show you how to put it back together, and then we'll be good to go. Alright, some last things I want to make sure that I touch on before we close this video out. There are a couple additions that I did make to the Fluval FX4 to kind of improve its filtration. So normally in a standard canister filter, when you unbox it, the bottom mechanical filtration is just this black pad here. I have added in some filter floss. This is after 6 weeks. It's actually not terrible, but we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna replace it. This is what it started as when I put it in new. So we're just gonna take this, we're gonna throw it out, and we're gonna put in our new filter floss, and then put our black polishing pad back on top. The last thing underneath of a new FX4, this channel here is just an open spot where water can run. To kind of make sure I had more biomedia and as much as I could for my 55-gallon tank, I went ahead and I put some Biomax in that groove. It doesn't affect the flow at all, and it does provide more place for beneficial bacteria to grow, which is important. So we're gonna go ahead, I'll put it back together, and we're gonna get our closing in a second. All right, so now that we have all of our mechanical filtration put back, all of our biomedia is ready to go, and I've replaced my filter pads. What I need to do is make sure that I add some water back into this canister filter so it can work properly. Very important, you do not just add tap water back into your canister filter. This thing houses all of your beneficial bacteria. Any chlorine in your tap water will kill off your bacteria. So you'd have to start over, go back to the cycling process. You don't want to do that. So make sure that you have a tap water safe, a C-Chem Prime, whatever chemical you use, make sure you add that to your tap water so it gets any chlorine, chloramine, nitrates, nitrites, any of that out of there so that your bacteria are going to be safe. So I just go ahead and dump this into my tap water. So now it should be good. It works pretty quick. And I can put this back into my filter. Make sure you do not fill this too full, or when you go and put the cover back on, the water will leak all over. So don't fill it completely full. Give yourself some room to work with. Once you open up your filter valves, it'll fill up pretty quickly. Something to know about the FX4, if you haven't done a ton of research on it, it does have an automatic reset system to get any kind of gas bubbles out of it. So every 12 hours, it shuts off for a couple minutes, expels any air bubbles that have become trapped in there. So do not worry when you plug this thing in the first time or after any maintenance, anytime you unplug it, it will shut off for a couple minutes, let the air bubbles out, and then it'll get to work. So do not freak out. It's perfectly fine. That's how it's supposed to work. Once you put the cover of your canister filter back on, when you're screwing on the white tabs that cause the canister filter to seal, do them always in opposites. So do two on the opposite side. Do not completely tighten them on until you've screwed all of them on snug, and then tighten them down. You don't want your seal, your lid to be bent in any sort of way that's not made to be bent into. So make sure you're patient. Opposites, tighten them down to snug, and then once they're all snug, screw them back down. All right, so everything's ready to go on this. In this episode, I'm not going to do any maintenance on my impeller. That's supposed to be done about every 3 months. So in 2 months, I'll make a video on how to clean out the impeller. Now all we have to do, put this back in its the filter's location, and put the valves back on, and we can turn it on and we'll be ready to go. All right, so that's another episode of Wells' Amateur Aquariums. Remember, once you plug that filter in, it'll kick on for a minute or two, and then it's going to shut off to make sure all those bubbles that got built up in there get kicked out. So don't freak out when you plug it in and it shuts off. If you unplug it, it's going to start the whole process back over again. So just give it its time, it'll turn back on, it'll be good. Right now it's a little bit milky. That's just because of all of the material that's built up in the hoses that has been kind of expelled because of this maintenance. So that'll clean up no problem. Do remember, with the Fluval hoses, they have a lot of ribs in there, so you do need to do maintenance on your Fluval hoses as well. Do not skip that process. That's all I've got. So be sure, if you are not currently a subscriber to Wells' Amateur Aquariums, please make sure you subscribe. If you found this video helpful or you just found it funny, make sure you hit that like button, that thumbs up, and then of course hit that little bell for notifications so whenever I post new videos, you get to know about them right away. All right, that's all I've got. We'll see you later, YouTube.